Hi everyone, welcome back to Demands Decoded. Dan here as usual, and we've got Amanda McGrath back in the hot seat opposite me over there. And in this episode, we're talking about your first 90 days as a B2B marketing leader. What is it you actually need to do and achieve in those 90 days? We're going to be covering all of that in this episode. And yeah, I mean, before we dive into it, for some reason, we end up talking about chocolate quite a
Yes, we
lot.
do. We do.
We're both big chocolate lovers. We had a big segment in the last episode we were together on chocolate. And this is a bit of a segue from our usual marketing spiel, but important, right? I've got a question to start things off.
Okay.
As a B2B marketing leader, B2B marketing leaders in general, what do you think their choice of chocolate bar should be?
I just don't think there's one, and this is, a point I think we're going to disagree on. I think that your range of marketing leaders have a range of chocolate requirements and like expectations for chocolate. I think of like the big premium brands that are out there, like Green and Blacks, or maybe even Hotel Chocolat, kind of.
Oh, bougie.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
really bougie. And I think your CMOs all over that, right?
Yeah, see, I just think sometimes like a Lion bar. I mean, you don't get them very often these days, but I can imagine like a CMO or a VP with a lion bar because of like what it means to be a lion.
Maybe, but I feel like your VP is man, maybe this is it. So maybe your VP and your senior person is thinking like if I invest in the better value chocolate, then it's less bad for me. I'm optimizing for my health in this as well. I'm still getting my treats, but I've got some really like high quality 80-90% cocoa chocolate chips in my trail mix, as part of my post-workout routine.
Strong. I mean, when I like one of my go-to chocolate bars, and our US audience is literally going to be thinking, what on earth is going on right now? You just have to educate yourself on British chocolate. Penguin. Like, you just can't beat a classic penguin. But the trick where you bite off both ends and then slurp your tea through the penguin, and it's just like heavenly.
I do think that trick extends to Tim Tams, and I know a lot of people who do that with Tim Tams. I think it does also extend quite well to coffee if you like coffee more than tea. I think that for the US audience is just not going to get this at all. So
Maybe a live demo in the next episode.
I don't think so, but I do think so. It's probably worth saying because we didn't actually air it. But where this came from is that last time I was very nice and I brought you a Kit Kat, and then you've put penguins in the fridge. And I did this recently, the penguin trick at my desk, and it was very messy, but like delicious.
So good.
As you say, like flipping the things that are kind of quite simple. Like penguins are something that lots of kids have in their like lunch boxes at school, like a very like nostalgic memory. When you combine it with tea, it sort of elevates it, takes it to the next level.
ROI.
Better ROI.
That's what I'm always thinking. How do I maximize the investment of this thing? Right? Whether it's a chocolate bar, whether it's ads, whether it's an event, always got to be thinking ROI.
You're always on the hustle.
Yeah.
Even with your chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Maybe we'll keep this in. I think we will. Anyway, let's actually dive into this episode. And I'm really sorry for anybody that just like doesn't like chocolate and really hated that. But
I'm sorry for your life if you don't like chocolate.
Well, yeah,
it
is sad, isn't it? Before we get into the podcast today, here's a quick word from our sponsors, HubSpot. Think about listening to this podcast right now. You're probably multitasking and catching 70, maybe 80% of it. Now flip that and imagine only catching 20%. That'd be pretty crazy, right? Yet most businesses only use 20% of their data. All the important details in call logs, emails, and chats just left floating in digital space. HubSpot gives you access to those insights to help your business grow. Because when you know more, you grow more. Visit HubSpot.com to get the full picture today. Let's actually dive into the meat of this episode. And we're talking about, new marketing leaders. If you're in a new marketing role or you're a brand new leader, there's this 90-day period to really make a big impact and put your ideas and perspective into play. And that's what we're going to be covering.
Yes, I think it's such a critical window for establishing your presence in an organization, for building your understanding of that business, the relationships that are going to help you actually have effect. It's in some senses when your incoming value is at its highest, but also you're having delivered on what you're talking about is at its lowest. It's really fundamental to take that momentum from what was presumably a great interview process, and you're really excited about this new role, and keep it going until your having proven value has come up to meet it.
Yeah, yeah, love that. So, should we kind of break this down in phase by phase?
Yeah.
So, when you first step through the door, there are key things you need to do to kind of assess the landscape you're in and align.
Yeah, I think one thing to say to anyone starting a new role, you're going to have weird sleepless nights. Everyone has them, where you're like visualizing all the Excel spreadsheets of information you're taking in, and you're blurring the conversations that you've had. Probably these days, making sure that you find a really good way to help you manage the amount of information you're taking in is important. I think it's really valid to say that all of those conversations that you're having, you're going to record so that you can focus on being present in the moment and not on just taking the notes to
Yeah.
keep some sort of record of the conversation that you've had. But there are the steps that you need to take, and I think, yeah, you've got some good insight there. The way I think about it is your kind of frames of reference. What are the areas that you need to get really good understanding of and build out your feeling for better? There's the overall business. Where is it kind of financially? What is that makeup of its team like at the senior level? Therefore, those are your key stakeholders that you're gonna have to make sure you work really closely with. There's also, that environment around it. And I think that is a really key area to think about in terms of what's going on between your direct and indirect relationships. Things like what's going on with your suppliers, what's going on with any channel partners that you have. What are your channels to market? Are you direct selling? Really understanding how things are sold is critical, regardless of whether it's in the house or coming to you in another way. And also probably on the environment side, really making sure that you have met enough thought leaders, people in that environment to know what's happening beyond what you're being told inside the house, but also, really leaning on that internal insight into that area. What's happening in the world that around your business that you have no control over, but the business needs to adapt to? And a lot of adaptation actually happens in messaging and in the way that you talk about what you do. It's very important that messaging responds to the world. It's not just, I don't know, plenty of businesses have very internal facing communication. It's often one of the big things a marketing leader is there to unpick and solve for, is how do we talk in the way that the world is going to respond to.
Yeah.
So yeah, once you've got that sense of that environment piece, another area and really at the same time is understanding your internal resources. You can say that some of your stakeholder relationships are resources to you as well, but really you're thinking about what budget you have, how is it currently being spent, what technology do you have, how is that currently being used, what are the people at your disposal, whether your actual team or any agencies that you're working with, and have you had a frank assessment of their capabilities so you know whether they are being used to the full. So don't just go in looking at what they're doing, but actually make sure you understand what they're capable of. If you're talking to your agency, ask what else can you do that we're not getting you to do for us right now, so that you've got that as part of your picture, because that resource is there, you're just not using it. So software, people, assets, that's a really key one. So your website's an obvious asset, your brand is the bigger overarching one, but there are other things that will exist that are high value pieces of content, are, understanding even at the CMO level, like, does something really valuable exist that can be used there, is a key foundational piece. You don't necessarily, as the CMO, need to know the nuts and bolts of how it individually is performing, but you need to know what you have at your disposal. The marketing director or the CMO, you're the general, right? So you need to marshal your troops and make sure you have them on your map to be deployed when you've got your strategy. So resources, and then it's relationships. So everyone that you're working with, all of those people, resources that you've touched on, you need to be thinking about how you get the best out of them through rapport, making sure that you're engaging with them in the right way. If you do one without the other, you're never going to get the best combination. And the truth is that in every conversation you have, you're going to be doing a bit of both, assessing on the one hand, building relationship on the other, but you mustn't let one trump the other. You've got to keep both in mind, so I think this is true of any role, but that first 90 days are your most impartial 90 days, right? You have no ownership over what's been done previously. You are clear-head. Your notebook is brand new. After that 90 days, you are probably going to be in flight with some things that you have done and some of your own choices. You will never be unclouded by your own choices again. So use that. That is like the clearest lenses you'll ever have on this business, unless you take a break and come back again. So like really, really use that clarity and that ability to stay at the high level and not be, down in the weeds delivering on day one.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done an amazing job there of summarizing pretty much every point that I had in phase one. So I basically bundled all of our thoughts before this into ChatGPT and kind of got 3 different phases, and you pretty much covered actually every point in phase one there. But I thought I'll just go back over this again to summarize and to pull out anything that we might want to talk about. So in phase one, which, yeah, I mean, you've covered most of this already, but really the main objectives are to audit existing marketing performance, budget allocation, team structure, what resource you have at your disposal, build a deep understanding of the customer, market, business priorities, again, like looking outside as well as inside, and establishing credibility and rapport with other leadership roles, sales and product and service. I would probably add on to that, and any other teams really that are going to be relevant to marketing, probably most of them, if not all of them. And the key activities within that probably look something like marketing audit, assessing ROI of current spend, channels, funnel performance, team and capability review, kind of covered that off, cross-functional alignment, discussed that. Oh yeah, one interesting point in this, which I've heard done multiple times now from, marketing friends, is when you're having those initial conversations with other leaders in the business and other functions in the business, actually asking some of the same questions, but really giving yourself a fresh understanding of the business. So basically asking all of those people, how would you describe what we do and who we do it for? And seeing the different responses that you get from everybody in the business, see how aligned you are and see what everybody else thinks of what you do and who you do it for.
If nothing else, getting that from your leadership team, like what an amazing insight into the dynamic of your business at the most senior level. But yeah, across the business, ask the same question, get people to talk for 2-3 minutes and just compare notes. Yeah. Fantastic insight. Really interestingly, when you went through that list, I think the thing that I realized I had missed is one of the other areas you need comprehensive view on is your buyer across all areas, service, sales, and marketing. And that stretches from that environment piece all the way through how they're handled by the resources of your business. It's worth saying when I talk about resources, I'm not talking about pure marketing resources. I'm talking about the whole business's resources that can be turned to marketing's disposal or that marketing touches, sales being one, service being another there. Understanding your full buyer life cycle, their experience, I think is critical.
Yeah, totally agree. And actually, it's kind of the next one on the list, but not in the internal sense, but understanding the customer and any market research you can do at the same time. So reviewing any customer data, recorded sales calls will be pretty helpful. Like if they already have a tool like Gong, for example, I mean, that's going to be your best friend at this stage to analyze those calls in a lot more detail. Any external insights you have to validate ICPs or buyer personas would be really helpful too. Then the final point here is leadership insight. Understand those near-term goals, 2 to 5 year visions, and the targets that support those. And then finally, we've got, well, unless you have anything to add in there.
I think that is a really important point on leadership goals, and something that I see time and again when talking to marketing leaders. When I ask a marketing leader like what the business's objectives are, the answer should be in terms of revenue, it should be in terms of profit, It should be in terms of how the expectation of the business is that should be delivered to the business. So how much is coming from existing business? How much is net new? How much is coming from existing sales outreach? How much is coming from existing marketing, and what needs to be added?
Yeah.
Like, it's surprising how many marketing leaders don't have that insight at their fingertips, but it's critical in their first window of execution that they actually make sure that everything that they're doing ties back to those core overarching business objectives. And it's from there that you can work all the way down to say, how many marketing qualified leads do I need to be producing, which is probably your most important leading indicator before you go through like that quality and through sales, etc. The other piece that I think goes with that then is establishing, then you are there to say what you think ROI should be in the first year of your efforts. So most marketing leaders kind of know in their minds that return on investment is going to be lower in terms of the ratio in the first year, maybe two, but being able to say confidently what you think that ROI like figure is going to be, and to map how that will improve is then really important. So yeah, but it all starts, it only really works if you know what the overarching objectives are. And when you're asked about what those are, your answer is the business objective, not the, well, we've got to increase like the number of visitors.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the answer. The
Yeah.
answer is revenue, not even pipeline.
Yeah. Well, and, gross profit.
Yeah.
Like, not even revenue.
Well, you're right there. Absolutely.
Like, because we can make all the revenue in the world, but unless we're actually making profit on it and cash in the bank, like, how important really is it to the business?
Yeah, I had a really interesting chat a week or so ago with a guy who has great experience in a number of GTM roles and is in a new one. And one of the things he said to me is like, people who are coming into these senior roles right now come from the era where, particularly in SaaS, there was not a need to make profit. Actually, that no longer exists. There aren't businesses that can grow to billion-dollar companies without making a single like pence or cent. Like, every growth and funding comes from proof that there will be return on that investment overall.
Yeah.
The business's return on investment is its profit. Like, that is such an important thing. So yeah, thanks to Simon for making that point. That really like stuck with me. But also, yeah, he's absolutely right, actually, that if you are going to be successful in marketing, you can't spend all of the profit. You have to be thinking, how can I do the most as leanly as possible? And that doesn't mean saying ask for no money or try and do it on a shoestring or like plan to bootstrap it yourself, because that's not the action of a strategist or leader.
Yeah.
It is making sure that you plan strategically everything that you're going to invest in and sweat it.
Yeah.
Like, reuse, repurpose, plan how it's going to be used to the nth degree.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a good point. Like, I think it was Monday.com who went 4 or 5 years without making profit, and like they've only recently just like actually made profit in the past year. And yeah, it's just insane. And obviously there's different realms where you have different investment and different requirements in order to accelerate growth and then make profit further down the line. But most of the time, yeah, you want to be looking at the most bottom line figure you can that's relevant for you.
Yeah. In that 90 days, a lot of immediate priorities can come up. 90 days is actually a really long time. How do you think a leader maintains focus and doesn't lose sight of setting out their vision when a business might, even the most senior leaders might say, you've got to fix this burning platform? And that might sideswipe your ability to be strategic.
Yeah. Well, it's a tricky one, right? Because I think you need to do both.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. I actually think it's a kind of both, because fixing that platform and doing that great thing can give you a lot of credibility and trust in the bank. If you solve this big issue that's been burning in the business for a long time and you're the one that comes in and saves the day, you've got credit in the bank, you've got trust there. I think it's setting expectations that if you are doing this thing, if you're solving that problem, what's the impact on the timeline of the strategy you're going to implement, and what's the the impact further down the line on that. And then ultimately solving that need as soon as you can in the best way possible, whilst retaining the strategic element
Mhm.
in whatever way you can, or pushing the timeline out. But communication is going to be key there.
I think, yes, I agree with all of that. The other thing kind of comes back to a different conversation that you and I were having earlier. You asked me, like, why or what my lessons from having worked somewhere for 10
Yeah,
years
yeah,
are,
yeah.
right? And actually, if you're going into a senior role, you kind of want to be aiming to be there for the long term, to see several iterations of evolution and serious growth. If you're going in at the C-suite, you want some of the payout
Yep.
ultimately. So you want to be there for the long term. And one thing that I said at the time when we were chatting about it is there's an element of humility where you have to be ready to accept 6 weeks, a year, 3 years down the line that the thing you implemented is a cause of problems that needs to be ousted, and you need to be ready to say, yeah, we're moving on. But I think the other thing that you need to be ready to do is the yes and. So someone says, I need you to fix this burning platform. You say yes and make it part of your strategy. Ultimately weave it in. So you've got the blank book, you've got like that ability not to be in the weeds. Someone brings you something that would very quickly drag you straight into it. Make it part of the plan. Don't start fixing it the moment someone snaps their fingers, but identify what the best solution for it is going to be without tackling it. Unless you look at it and go, well, it's really simple. We haven't got any way to contact us on the site. I'm going to get that brute forced on day one. Like,
Yeah.
frankly, if you haven't had a look at your company's website on day one, you haven't really been preparing for your new role. So you may well turn up with like, these 3 things must be fixed today.
Yeah.
And that's lovely if you, are able to do that. But yeah, I think the yes and is really critical there. So don't let it detract, weave it in and own it, therefore, in a strategic way, not in a, yes, I'm at your beck and call, which devalues your seniority and that you're trying to craft in your organization.
There's a way to go about solving it, isn't there? Which isn't just, panic. They've asked me to do something quickly, implement the solution that they think. It's like, let's go back to the drawing board here. What's the actual issue?
Yeah.
Like, what challenge are we facing right now? How do we come up with the best solution possible? That might not be the one you're thinking of, by the way. It might be one that, I think of, or one that collectively as a group we think of. And then, add that to the strategy.
There can be a lot of pressure in such an early stage of a relationship. And I think the willingness to pause and to let there be silence, not to feel that you need to fill space with an immediate response, is important. And that's in a lot of your conversations, but like also in your broader thinking about how you approach relationship building. And then when it comes to, as you say, a leader, maybe this is your first time stepping up to this particular level, a leader doesn't answer as exactly requested to ask unless they independently vet and say, this is the right way to approach that. Every day you will get handed things and people want to be helpful. So they say, I believe the solution is this. You need to exercise judgment from day one. And you need to constantly be questioning that judgment until you feel you have the full grasp of the facts. And that means that you probably shouldn't be saying yes to anything straight away. You should be always deferring but setting expectations about when you will get back to somebody on something. So, the CEO says, I really think we need to change this image to that. You'd be surprised stuff like that genuinely happens. And people come into these roles at really painful points. Maybe you are replacing someone who exited at the beginning of a major web project and you're arriving on the last day and the CEO says, I want to change this to that. And you feel pressured to say yes. Like, I've seen it happen. But really, I think you're probably better off saying, let's go ahead as planned. We can change it later. Or going, that's minimal because it's something I can swap back later. But I need to set myself a timeline for doing so and not sit if I think it's the wrong choice.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that and be interested to hear your thoughts on is it's very easy to say yes to everything. it's very hard to say no to everything, but you also shouldn't say no to everything. Like, there are some things that you don't want to be the bottleneck. You don't want to be the person that's just not helping the business. Like,
Mhm.
if the sales leader comes to you and like they need this new resource that's going to help them close, like, you don't want to just be saying no, 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 can't do that,
Mm.
can't do that. Like, even if it's no, but can do it later, like,
Mhm.
you want to be partners. You want to be able to help. And like, I think that's an important point, that there are things that you just need to do
Mhm. Yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely. I mean, that is where, but that's then you're the leader, not the doer,
Mm,
right? So you need to understand who your troops are. You're the general in this, and you need to say, of my strategic assets, I need this person to go and make this fix. And sometimes you'll say that, and that person goes, actually, I'm not responsible for that particular thing. You go, okay, well, who is? Fine, then that person do it. Like, you're gonna have hiccups like that.
yeah,
It's gonna happen, but just so long as you are humble, thankful, building rapport through all those other kind of interpersonal techniques that you've got that either are inherent or that you've practiced because you've done some leadership kind of training. I think you'll be fine on those fronts. You're right. You don't want to say no. I think you want to be able to say when you need to exercise good judgment to say, I'm going to come back to you on that, because that's not no or yes.
yeah,
You need to commit to when you'll come back. You need to block the time to make the decision and turn it around.
yeah. Most businesses don't realize just how much their website is holding them back. VDOT were generating strong demand, but their site just wasn't converting it. We rebuilt their site with their buyers in mind, sharpened the user experience, and aligned it to their goals. And within 90 days after launch, high intent conversions increased by 100%, and demo requests rose by 14%. That's what happens when your website finally works as hard as your marketing. If you think your website might be holding you back, let's start the conversation at blendb2b.com. If you're enjoying this show, let me recommend another one from the HubSpot podcast network that I personally never miss. Nudge, hosted by Phil Agnew. What I love about Nudge is that it's all about the psychology and science behind human behavior. What makes us take action, form habits, or say yes. And then it shows how those same principles shape great marketing and sales. In one episode, Phil looks at how just 3 words in a text message boosted vaccination rates and may have saved hundreds of lives. That's the endowment effect at work, a tiny psychological nudge creating a huge outcome. Every episode of Nudge is about 20 minutes, fast paced, no fluff, and packed with ideas you can actually use. Check it out. Nudge is available wherever you get your podcast. Let's move into like the next phase, because a lot of that's going to translate into the whole 90 days, of course. Like, you're not going to be able to assess and align on all of that within 30 days. It will take you 90 days and probably beyond. But the next phase that we've got outlined here is really optimizing and improving. So within this, we've got like demonstrating an early impact with measurable improvements, getting some trust and credibility in the bank. That goes into the next point: establishing trust through quick wins while scoping larger changes. And
Mm.
within here, some things like fixing the funnel, sales handoff optimization, early pilots. Thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, I mean, quick wins are often incredibly light touch to deliver. And something that we've been talking about recently with a problem that I'm helping to solve for an existing client is actually around repositioning. So you're quite likely to see some sort of refinement in either positioning or the conversion call to action that you need to create. Those are things that are quite often issues that can have quite significant impacts. And so it might be that you need to work on refining some messaging. It might be that you say the messaging overall is fine, but the conversion points are wrong. Those should, obviously, there are horrible situations where you're in relationships with proprietary vendors and things like that, where you're going to get charged an arm and a leg to change button copy. My hope is that you're not in that position. But if you are, then you probably are going to have to suck it up and get a list of changes over to that developer to get those fixes done, because you know that every day they are costing you conversions. And that can be that you obviously do want to make sure that you're backing up your decisions as much as you can. But also your gut and your experience should be telling you that. You should be looking at a site and going, this is just never going to work. The messaging here is unclear. I'm going to refine it and make it much more direct. I'm going to make sure that this kind of call to action is always visible, like whatever it is, those decisions. And really, I think that's the stuff alongside your deeper learning about the industry and things like most people coming into a role of this seniority probably were on 3 months' notice.
Yeah.
You've got a long time to prepare.
Yeah.
And so you can come in on day one and be like, I want to have these quick wins done.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some areas that I would call out as well. In particular, is like you've hopefully initially done the kind of budget review, the split funnel analysis of where the best high intent leads are coming from, what budget is allocated to that channel, that area, and how they're converting throughout the funnel. Like you can then start to dive into that. Like Google ads and like performance ads are going to be an area where there's probably a lot of waste. If there's not, you're very lucky. You're probably whoever you're working with, like, give them a pat on the back. It's probably quite easy to come in and immediately understand, okay, what areas of our ads are performing and what aren't ultimately, and save a whole chunk of budget there, redistribute it or save it.
Yeah. I mean, I think as well, if you're in a really senior role, then there's a good chance that some of the business's strategy is changing for some reason. There's a very high likelihood chance. And so the team delivering at the tactical level will not necessarily be aligned with that overarching vision. They won't necessarily have had anyone telling them for a little while because of the way that, particularly in Europe, hiring and firing work.
Yeah.
So there's probably been a gap. And even if there isn't, there's someone who's leaving, who's checked out, who isn't like carrying that message all the way through. So really, truly, if you come in and from your conversations with the CEO or the head of sales or whoever, like CRO, whoever you report into, that the business is no longer aiming for small transactional, is aiming up market, or vice versa, just switch off those ads. Like, stop spending money on it. If it's no longer part of the strategy, just switch it off. Save that money to either deploy elsewhere because you have overall ownership of the budget, or just, as you say, save it. So some of it's not that the ads aren't doing well, it's that they are no longer a strategic part of what the business is trying to achieve. So all money should be funneled into what the overarching strategy is.
Yeah.
Fix the funnel. Like, if the funnel we want is, we don't really want to have to work through 10 deals when we could have one. We're going up market. Stop advertising to small business owners and to, on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like that point around working 10 deals when we could work one kind of goes up the funnel as well into like, well, we probably only want to work 10 leads instead of 100. And it's identifying where do we get those best 10 leads and optimizing for more of those and turning off the budget in the other areas where the leads are ineffective. And a big point to focus effort and attention on is probably the handoff process from marketing to sales. It's where a lot of drop off occurs and where some optimization and acceleration of getting high intent leads, hand raisers into the palms of sales a lot quicker will have great impact all around the board, and sales will love you for it.
Yeah. And I think that is where also understanding, lead quality is so important. If sales are consistently saying the quality is not right, then an early fix might be to change the pricing page, to change, like, to make the forms more complicated. We talked about this before. There's huge power in raising the barrier to entry. If you have the other issue, if you don't have enough leads coming through, then that's different. But a frank conversation with sales about what the pipeline looks like, what the conversations look like, will help you assess whether, even in situations where you're not getting enough but you're getting poor quality, raising the barrier so that you're not wasting time on poor quality is very important. If you want to move your win rate from 10% to 30%, having, halving the number of discovery calls, even when it's a low volume, is probably a sound move.
Yeah, to focus on the quality.
Exactly.
Yeah, giving yourself more time as a salesperson to actually put more effort into that deal makes sense.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. There's a lot of fear in that sort of decision making
Yeah.
of what if we turn away people who are actually good? Well, people who are actually good won't be or actually want to make a genuine inquiry won't be put off by the fact that your prices are within their budget. And they won't be put off by the fact that you're asking them for the details that show that you take their business and opportunity seriously.
Yeah.
The right buyer won't be lazy about it. They will want to find the best vendor.
Yeah.
So yeah, you are just genuinely getting the chaff out in
Yeah.
that situation.
Now, a stumbling block here might be the way that marketing has historically been measured, which is lead volume. But as a new marketing leader, you're in a perfect position now to change that.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes on to the next section where we're talking about architecting and scaling. But yeah, there might be pushback to say, oh, well, then we won't hit our lead goal of this amount. But this is a great opportunity to come in and actually have the conversations around, okay, what's the mindset that we want to go into, which is ultimately we all care about the bottom line. Then what are the metrics that we actually want to measure around that, and then actually crafting that framework?
Well, that's where it does. It starts, as we said before, from the revenue and the profit, and it works its way back through what's the contribution coming from marketing. If that's being measured only at leads, but what we're saying now is marketing qualified is really the lead measure that counts. And actually the relationship between sales and marketing qualified is one that we have an ability to impact significantly. That's really powerful. It's about how do we reframe? How do we educate? We've got also, by not being like tenured, we have the greatest ability to convince people that our new ideas come from experience elsewhere. You are coming in and you are exciting and new, like make sure that lands. Something I find myself saying really often when I'm on the podcast is you have the job. You always have the job, whatever your job is, of making sure that other people understand you. Everyone has that. But in this, it's so important because you are the only translator. No one else is going to come and try and understand why site visits is important. It's going to sound like a vanity metric to them unless you frame it. I'd say that most marketers should be looking closer to the actual funnel for their real measure of success, because pure visits alone is not a success indicator. Pipeline is success, and pipeline can be influenced disproportionately by certain kinds of activity.
Yeah.
So leaning into that and making sure you really are, as you say, split funnel, paying attention to what's genuinely working, what's bringing in not just the right number of leads, but the right quality. Those are the things where you're going to turn very quickly from someone who just talks a good talk to I make changes that make revenue easier to get hold of.
And would it be right to say that as a new marketing leader, the CEO, for example, wants you to come in and like shake things up a little bit and bring new ideas? If you're just coming in and you're happy to steer the ship in the same direction it's already been going in, like to me, that just seems ineffective.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're new and your role is new, then absolutely the expectation is the business has never been serious about marketing until now. And you are the one we have chosen to make marketing serious in this organization. So go ahead and speak truth to the power in the business, which is probably going to be the CEO. Like it might be the CRO or the CCO, it might be CGO, but genuinely it's going to be the CEO because they have never invested in marketing until now. Unless it's all new leadership. That's like a whole different kettle of fish. But yeah, so if you're a net new role, then definitely the expectation is there. If you are replacement, understanding the dynamic as you come in is so important. Understanding what decisions were made that were perceived to have gone badly, and then being able to really understand whether or not that was the case. Because you may come in thinking some kinds of tactic are critical, and the company might have been burned by PPC. It might have been burned by advertising in a particular space previously. It might believe that all of its incoming leads come from like PR, and they've always invested in PR. So why would they change that now? They might have some really complicated, politics around certain supplier relationships. Oh, our creative agency is run by the brother of the CEO. We've encountered that before.
Point, yeah.
Like, we are never going to get away from this outsourced person because they are the wife of somebody that we know. Like, these things are all part of your assessment coming into the organization about how you are going to be the general moving pieces and do it well. They are as much your constraints and areas that you need to reframe as anything else.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like, we're funny, aren't we, as humans, and like the relationships and the awkwardness that become of that. Like, it's such a good point, understanding the politics and previous relationships and everything that goes alongside that.
Some of it, if you're coming in at the CMO level, I actually think it's a really critical piece of the puzzle to unlock before you make the decision to join. Like, asking frank questions about what relationships do we have that are, complicated, where we're not making decisions as we would if we were all impartial. Like, where are our impartiality blind spots in this business, I think is actually really important, because they might show you that your hands are tied in a way that you are not comfortable with. They might show you that there is the potential for some toxic dynamics. We've worked in environments before where members of the board are in relationships that are not disclosed. Like, that can create a very difficult environment to work in if you're not aware of it going in. And even if you are aware of it, it may prove too difficult to be successful because you're working alongside someone who has a relationship that you can't trump, but actually you're expected to deliver on something that they feel they have a say over. Like, it can be messy. So people are funny, people are messy. That landscape is as critical to your success as anything else. In fact, more so, because those are the people you're going to spend all your time with.
Yeah, that is a fantastic point, actually. Okay, let's move into the last phase, which, to sum it up, is basically the strategy, the plan that comes out of all of this. And I think it includes a few key things like the go-to-market foundations, your ICP, messaging, channels, budgets, measurement and reporting framework, the validation from the external market, like what are customers saying, what are our competitor landscapes like. We haven't even touched on that yet. Suppliers, like you say, positioning, and then you've got the roadmap. How do you combine all of that? What are you doing basically for the next year, 3 years?
There's a point in this journey, and it's either within the first 90 days or shortly after, where you are essentially feeding back to the people who have hired you about what you came in assuming, what you've learned that either reinforces that or contradicts it, and therefore what is going to be done. So what are you going to act on, and how are you going to measure it? That's the kind of classic steps that you've taken of a strategy formation. You may not be documenting it in a old school SOSTAC framework. You may have your own way of positioning it, but those are the steps that you've taken. You came in with one understanding, you validated it, you've added to your picture, you've added on things that you think are opportunities, you've done a really thorough analysis. Now you've said, how are we going to execute on what we have agreed is happening and that we want to happen? And then how are we going to make sure that we know whether it's working or not?
Yeah, love that. Do you want to mention the point about overpromising? I thought it was a really good one when we had our kind of chat before this.
Yeah, I think it's really hard when you are under pressure in a new role, trying to establish and prove yourself. It's really, really hard not to overpromise. It is the thing that you must be really vigilant about in yourself. You must not set expectations too high. Now, that's not because you want to be mediocre. You want to exceed those expectations that you've set, and you want to be seen to be winning. That's the thing. If people come in thinking, "Oh, revenue's going to double in the next 3 months," you're set up to fail. And you've set yourself up to fail in that being what's agreed. I think as well that expectation, kind of that dynamic and relationship environment that we're talking about with your leadership that are around you, it's really important to be paying attention to when your attempt to set expectations is failing. Some people aren't willing to hear certain kinds of thing. And so that's part of your Do I need to keep reinforcing? Do I need to keep beating the drum that progress will be slow, but I'm seeing some improvements over here? I'm setting everything up so that you understand how it ties to revenue, not to anything that you might see as a vanity metric.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to exceed the targets that I've set for myself and the expectations that I've set for myself. I want to do better than this. You can even say, I believe this to be a conservative starting point, and my hope is that I will exceed it. But you're still better to set that expectation than to say, I will do 10x and coming in at 6.
Yeah. I think it's such a good point. And I think one thing I would add to that is expect the unexpected, because before you get into the seat, before you get your laptop, before you get access to all of the data, all of the insideness, I don't know what the word is to describe all the politics that go along with everything.
Dynamics.
Like the dynamics, right? There's going to be so many things that come up that you don't expect, and you got to have a really open mind to consume all of that.
You might arrive, and 2 days after you arrive, the company's biggest customer might hand in their notice, and they might be 20% of the revenue. Like that's the reality that many businesses face. What would that present as a situation? What would that mean? There's risk in everything. Being ready to be humble and to change your approach and to adapt is critical. You're gonna get big surprises.
Yeah, like we all go into a new role with a plan of what we're going to do. We might even map out our first 90-day plan before we start. If you're a good marketing leader,
we might have been pitching it as part of our interview process. This is what I'm going to do in my first 90 days. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's pretty likely. But you have to be prepared to adapt that and change it as you come in and see all of these things uncover.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Any kind of closing thoughts, words of wisdom for our new marketing leaders going into their new roles, first 90 days?
I think it's really easy to see yourself as going in with no ammunition until you start to furnish yourself. But remember your experience and dig into it. There's a balance to be struck there between like harping on about things that are not relevant and bringing what's relevant to bear and making it valuable. But don't go in with the imposter syndrome like looming large. Go in with, I get to be like really agnostic coming into this situation. I get to learn about a new business from scratch, and I love learning. Like, I don't think that there is a leader at that level who hasn't got to where they are by really genuinely loving learning new things. So embrace that. Embrace the ability to make great relationships that has also got you to that level, and find some ways to decompress and not sweat about it too much on the weekends, or you'll be hallucinating funny spreadsheets when you're trying to sleep. So
yeah. All right. Awesome. Let's wrap it up there. Maybe one little thing to add on is just, think about that chocolate selection again.
Absolutely.
Like, people are watching your choice of chocolate bar, so pay attention. And
your snacks say a lot about you, man.
They do. Yeah, they uncover a lot of meaning about a person, so bear that in mind when you go into the shop and select those snacks for your first day, especially.
Come in day one, set the bar high.
Day one, some good chocolate,
artisanal.
All right, cool. Let's wrap it up there, and hopefully you enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really interesting, really good one. So let's leave it there, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
This episode of Demand Decoded was brought to you by Blend. We help B2B technology companies grow through strategic, creative, and technical expertise, bringing you the capabilities you need to drive demand and turn it into real revenue impact for your business. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Demand Decoded on your favorite podcast platform, leave us a quick review, and we'll see you next time with more insight to help you grow.